Welcome to the Studio Chat podcast, the podcast designed to be your companion in the journey of self-discovery. I'm Barbara Thompson, your host, and a dedicated therapist. I'm the founder and owner of Self-Care Studio, a private counselling practice. With my clients, in courses that I create, on this podcast, I'm committed to ensuring that you have the support that you need. I created this podcast as a space for you to feel a sense of connection and a reminder that you're not alone in this thing that we call life, this adventure. This podcast is your weekly reminder to trust yourself, live life authentically, and embrace the path that is uniquely yours. Together, we'll explore ways to break free from people-pleasing, overthinking, allowing you to claim your time and energy to live life on your terms. You'll be joined by myself as I take you through some episodes, or during the year, I'll have some special self-care experts as guests on my podcast. So if you're ready to step into a life that's truly for you, join me on this journey. Let's navigate the twists and turns of life together, and more importantly, live your life for you. So thank you so much for choosing to spend some time with me today. Let the studio chat begin. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Studio Chat podcast. I'm your host, Barbara Thompson. And today I'm really excited to bring someone really special to you. We're in upstate New York, and I think I can listen to her accent all day. I really could. We're talking to Corbie. Now I'm going to make sure I get this right. Mitleid?
Yes, very good. Very good.
Right. Okay. Now, she's kindly gifted me one of her books. It was a digital copy of Clean Out Your Life Closet. Take charge of your life and love your journey. And I personally really could resonate with this book. I was the black sheep of my family and constantly lived a life for 38 years of doing the things my father wanted me, doing things that was expected, getting married because that's what you do. And then when all my marriage crumbled and my life crumbled, I was like, who am I? And every time in my life when I tried to use my voice or tried to use my opinion, I'd get shot down by everyone. And it got to the point where I was like, who am I? I don't matter. So your book has really resonated with me. And I know it's going to resonate with a lot of my clients in my therapy practice, but also people who tune into my podcast, because my podcast is all about conversations about, it says conversations about self-care, but really if I'm going to boil it down, it's about giving you this toolbox, which you talk about, of having, okay, what do I need? What can I pick from? You know, what am I going to use to live my best life? So welcome, Corbie, to my podcast.
It's wonderful to be here. Thanks for asking me.
It's so nice. So we're taught from childhood, like everyone knows better than us. Like, how do a lot of us carry that on for the rest of our lives?
Because we are taught this is the right way to do it. And every single time we try to be ourselves independent, we get told it's wrong. We get told we're bad. We get told you don't understand. You have to do it my way. So that we rebels really have to fight. So yes, we become the black sheep. We become the crazy failures of the family. I state in the book, everybody in my family is medical. Dad was a cardiologist. My mother was a nurse. My brother is world famous as a pediatric pulmonologist. Me, I was an actress. I was a writer. I could have stood on the dining room table, tap danced and recited Shakespeare at dinner, and they would not have seen me.
Yeah.
So I always had to push to find out who I was, to ignore the fact that they would say, you know, oh, just ignore her. She's crazy. Just ignore her. We can't do anything about her.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, it wasn't all members of my family, but one or two in particular. And you have to come to the realization, if your family doesn't love you, that's just the way it is. You can't make them love you. You can't make who you are dependent on their loving you. You can't.
And I have read a bit of your bio. Yeah, and sorry, I have read a bit of your bio in your book. So I know I came from a family that could see my light and were very threatened and very jealous of it, so would put it out at all costs.
Hmm.
And so I know I went out into the world as an adult looking for the wrong type of love. Could you
Hmm.
resonate with that in the beginning? Were you looking, because obviously if you're surrounded by a family that's like, we can't see you, you're nothing to us. Did you go out in the world as a teenager and in your 20s looking for that love?
Yes. For one thing, I was involved in a medieval and Renaissance reenactment group that I think you have in Australia. It's called the Society for Creative Anachronism, SCA. And so I got to swan around in, 20, 30 pounds of Tudor garb. And I met someone there and we got married. His parents hated me. My parents hated him.
Mm.
Um, we lasted less than a year because he had a terrible temper. And I left after the first time he threw me against a wall. Now, since I had come from a very dysfunctional family with my parents fighting all the time, my mother an alcoholic who kept trying suicide, it just happened. But when it happened to me, I knew I had to get out. So got home. Second marriage, about 11 years later, um, well, my mother was dead by that time. My father was still alive, and he thought I could have done better. This guy was very nice, very smart, but 350 pounds. And my parents were very conscious of that. I was not his first marriage. He was not mine, but we had been friends for years. So we got married, and that lasted less than 2 years because he decided he didn't like being married and he didn't like Atlanta, Georgia, which is where he moved us. Um, I jokingly say, I am not a magnolia. I'm a bagel. And if you're in the United States, magnolias are southern flowers and bagels are New York. He was neither. He was a surfboard. He was a California boy. So he needed to go back to California, and that was it. So I refer to them as the two bad biker boys. Another 11 years passed, and I met a guy who's very much like Father Mulcahy on the television show MASH. Very different from both. And I didn't know that's what I wanted until I had him. And that marriage has been going for almost a quarter century.
Yeah,
Once I realized somebody would accept me exactly the way I was, that was key.
there you go. I really want people to listen to that. Someone that accepts you exactly the way you are. My
Hmm.
first marriage sounded exactly like your first marriage, but I stayed in it for 8 years. And
Ow.
then, and then I left and haven't been married since. um, but yeah, so I can really resonate with that. Okay, so what's the change between the second marriage and then the lovely man that you're with now? What did you like? We're talking about self-help books, but is that where did, and I know you're a medium and you're an intuitive as well, but where did you know where to go? Like obviously you're like, oh man, I'm not, this guy's not my jam either. How did you know where to start?
I didn't. I didn't think I'd ever get married again. I didn't think I'd ever date again. I thought I was on the shelf at 40. But Carl and I had known each other briefly right after the end of my second marriage. We dated long distance. He was all the way in upstate New York, and I was still in Atlanta. And it broke up after a year because neither of us were really ready for it. 6 years later, I moved back up to the Hudson Valley area of New York. In those 6 years, all of my intuitive abilities had crashed in. All of a sudden, I could do hands on healing, talk to dead people, things like that. And when that happens, and you say to the universe, okay, I got it, I accept my draft notice, you get humbled because this is not about you. This is about service and what you're here to do for humankind. As I say, I take my work seriously, me not so much. So my ego, which had been huge in Atlanta, had been beaten down. Meanwhile, Carl had gotten the job of his dreams. He is a historian, and he became the museum director for an 8-building American Revolutionary War site. So we were now equal. When I came back up here, through an odd circumstance, he heard my name on the radio. He knew I was back here. We met. By the second date, we knew this was it. But both of us kept fighting it, figuring, nah, this is just friends with benefits. But as we say, we kept sliding down the glass mountain. We could not help falling in love. So we lived together for a year and then got married. And I don't care how long you've known somebody, marriage will change things. It is alchemy. And the amazing thing was, 18 months after we got married, I got my 3rd bout of breast cancer. I had beaten it twice, and it was not awful. I had lumpectomies and radiation the first time, and then radiation again for the second, and an excision. But this time it was a second primary. Even though they took the danger clock back to 0, they said to me, 3 strikes, you're out. And they took me from literally a Dolly Parton figure, that's how I was built, to a fat fire plug with permanent side effects and internally damaged. And they said, this is it, suck it up. Did I go home and cry? Yeah, I didn't know what was going to happen. But number one, Carl looked at me and said, am I going to miss them? Yeah, they were gorgeous. But I married you, not them. And I knew from my own training, I had to find 3 reasons to be okay with what was going to happen so I could move into this in a positive way. So I said, okay, number 1, you don't have them, you can't get cancer there. Number 2, the top half is not going to get slammed in the refrigerator door at the doctor's every year. And every woman listening knows exactly what I'm talking about with mammograms. 3rd, implants. I'll be perky till I'm 93. That's cool. So as a result, one of our best hospitals, Massachusetts General Hospital, I had a double mastectomy and reconstruction, 6 hours of surgery, walked out of the hospital in 3 days and shopped for a bathing suit in 5. And that was 20 years ago. And I'm clean as a whistle. Still married. And I like who I am now, because it's not what I look like anymore. It is who I am as a person. And so that may have been the karmic reason why I needed to get rid of the rack, so that I would have more compassion, less concentration on what I looked like, and was ready to help women going through that dark night and say, you can make it. And I tell them what's on the inside of my wedding ring from Carl. I believe in you.
Wow. I think a lot of us can learn a lot from that, because a lot of us women are really, it's definitely speaking to my soul, because, yeah, caring about the outside, not the inside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, when you're built the way I was, you are treated as if nothing else is worth anything but what you look like and will you put out. Mm-hmm. And when that's all the world treats you like, eventually you begin to believe it too. And the universe kept saying to me, we have to get you out of that headspace. We need you to do work for us. And they finally said, all right, we're going to remove the problem. And it was, T1N0, which means the cancer had not only not metastasized, it wasn't even thinking about it, hadn't bought its bathing suit or looked at the cruise brochures. So done is done. Did not have to go through chemo. Basically surgical menopause, which is not easy. It's like being kicked off a cliff. Yeah. But because I accepted, I'm not going to be my old me. I stepped into the new work. Who am I going to be now? What do I want to tell God I got to do while I was down here? What's my sentence of passion? That's what I worked on since then. That's also why I read about 1,000 people a year and throw myself into my work, because this is what I'm meant to do. This is how I can make a difference in the world.
Do you think by going through cancer 3 times, it took you to that next level to be able to read for that many people and to be able to hold space for them?
Yeah. In fact, I never say that I survived cancer or I beat cancer. What you fight fights back, and you say the word survivor, and you think of somebody hanging on by teeth and toenails. I tell people that I am a cancer dancer. I found out how graceful I could be under pressure, avoided getting my toes stepped on, and got off the dance floor in one piece 3 times.
Yeah, you can tell you're a writer. You have such a beautiful way of explaining things.
Oh, I've always said words are my drug of choice.
Very much. Listening to you is just what a breath of fresh air. I genuinely mean that. Because there's so many people that just spurt out shit, spurt out quotes, spurt out, you know what I mean? Especially in your line of work, there's so many people that's why I find you so refreshing.
Jargon, 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 jargon. Hi, yes. Oh, wonderful. There are some readers, psychics that are like that too. I refer to them as glurpy purple with angels. They're the ones that go, "Hi, my name is Little Dancing Raccoon, and here's my spirit guide, Arctic Bear. Let's see what your angels are saying today." Can I vomit now? I'm sorry. I just cannot take that level of
I tell you what, they wouldn't be reading for me. I'd be like, I've already switched off on the first.
I know. It's funny. You're intuitive, you're psychic. It's the same bedside manners. There are some people that need that. Me, you talked about my accent before. You want real New York. This is New York. I'm going to hit you upside the head with a glue brick, but you're going to laugh.
Yes.
Yeah. That look, you have to realize I was a theater major at Brown University, and one of my specialties is accents. I can do just about anything. So I by birth it should be Southern New Jersey and Philadelphia, but I have lived in upstate New York most of my adult life. So I sound like a New Yorker to a lot of people. But if they really want Brooklyn, yeah, I could crank it up a few notches.
Love it. Oh, I could listen to that literally all day. It's just one of the best accents.
I think it's hilarious because I never think of myself as an accent. You have this glorious Aussie accent, and I'm just me. But that's how insular a lot of Americans are. We don't hear the accent that we do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so nice. Oh, I literally could. Anyway, so.
Yes, we have to go on, or we're going to be discussing things, over beer for 4 hours, and we can't do that.
All right. I think when we talk about self-help books, gosh, I think they really came about, I want to say in the 90s or earlier than that.
No. My dear, when I was 13 in 1968, I got my first self-help book.
Oh.
And the reason I wrote my book is I remember the first paragraph. Judy has a groovy wardrobe. Remember, this is 1968. Her hair is fab and her makeup is far out. But nobody likes Judy because Judy's fat. So in that first paragraph, hundreds of thousands of American teenagers were told, you are worthless. Worthless unless you are really thin. And that's what a lot of self-help books do. Do everything I tell you and it all gets better. When I was originally studying this, there was someone who said, well, you really do need to get up 2 hours early every morning and do yoga and avoid food with leptin. I'm sorry. If you are a single mom with 2 preteen kids and a job in Milwaukee, you are not going to do that. So you're set up to fail, which is why the way my book is constructed, it's here are some of the dumb things I did. Maybe here's a client story. Here are some suggestions. But in the back, you've got what I have called the adventure pages, where you answer questions that have to be answered from your own life. And you see how much of my book is going to be useful to you, and maybe not all of it will be. For instance, in the chapter, it's my favorite one, How Perfect Destroys Good. Here are 3 of the questions. Where do you beat yourself up most often? Why? Reimagine one of those times with the idea that good can triumph over perfect. What does it look like now? How would your life change if you stopped thinking perfection was the only correct response to a project or situation? Now, those questions, you have got to look at your own life to do it. You don't look at me as the expert or the guru. I don't want that. I'm a companion on the road with you. But
Mm.
if you do all the questions at the end of each chapter, by the end of that book, it is your personal manual for you. Your best buddy could buy the book the same day, do all the questions, finish it the same day. But because she would make different answers from her life, her book would be differently viewed.
Mm.
That's the way they should be.
I'm curious to know that book, the first self-help book. What on earth was it
Mhm.
about? Can you remember?
It was about how you could be a wonderful, popular teenager. I remember one of the other things she said is, I always shorten my skirt 1 inch every year. Not today, baby. Um, it was how to fit in. It was how to be that perfect teenage girl.
Mm-hmm.
And it in those days, it did not take into account your smarts.
Mm.
It didn't take into account what you wanted to do with your life. It was, what do you look like? Are you popular? Then you're good.
You know what, Corbie? I think
Well,
it hasn't changed. It has, but it hasn't. You know what I mean? Like I see a lot of
mhm.
teenage girls, and I'll be 44 this year. And I know in my generation, definitely it was still popular, how you looked, being skinny, all that kind of stuff. I see teenage girls now, and that narrative is still, it looks a bit different, but it's still there.
It is, but at the same time, the Gen Z is going to be fighters. One of the things I talk about is the difference between being an elder and a boomer. Y'all know boomers. I'm that generation. Yeah, it was great. We had fabulous music and the best clothes and, the greatest cars, and we could make a living. But we did not, and I'm talking from kids in the United States, we did not worry about being killed when we went to school. We did not think that maybe the earth would be uninhabitable by the time we grew up. We did not worry that somebody would try to kill us because we voted a certain way, decided to take a vaccine, loved a certain way. The world now is raging and violent in a way it wasn't for us. So for boomers to say they should do it this way, no, we have no idea. So our responsibility as elders is, number one, get off the world stage, get out of the limelight. Not everybody can be Keith Richards, and let the Gen Zs take over.
Yeah.
We don't tell them what to do. If they ask us things, when they ask, we give them the information we have. We accept they will do it differently, and we have to be third trenchers. Now, what's a third trencher? In World War I, trench warfare. In the first trench, you went over the top to get, the other side. Second trench was filled with the next line, reserves. But the third trench was medical, food, supplies. So we boomers, as a third trencher, if there is an event to feed the homeless, we pack the food and we do the dishes. But we let the millennials and the Gen Zs plan it, get the social media going, talk to the media about it, and take the credit.
Mm.
And a lot of boomers find that hard. But that is the only way we're going to make it. The world is going to a very, very dark place. I don't know about you, but it certainly is here.
Mm.
And I'm not even going to go into the politics, because
Mm.
no matter who wins our election in November, we're going to have very dark times in 25 and 26, because the sides are so very far apart. So our job, if you will, as light workers, is to heal, to feed, to counsel, to comfort. I talk about being a literary prepper here. Every time you hear a book is being banned, you buy a copy, you put it in your cellar. if you have to, you hide it so that when the generations are ready for those books again, we have a copy. I never thought I would see that in the United States, but that's where we are.
What books are
That's
being
why
banned in
Corbie
the
Purple, what they
States?
do. What?
What books are
What?
being banned?
There are so many books because Heather has two mommies. That's terrible. That says homosexuality is good, and we all know it's bad. You can't have that one. Huckleberry Finn, racist. Winnie the Pooh, animals don't talk. That's demonic. And on and on and on and on.
But Winnie the Pooh's banned.
In some communities, yes. The whole thing is the dumber you can make the populace, the more there'll be sheep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's we're not going to get into politics, but you have to accept the fact that it's going to be scary for a while.
Mm.
There'll be a new America rising from the political ashes. I know that. I may not be alive to see it because I'm going to be 70 in March. But this is what happens in the world. Civilizations crumble and rebuild. Ideas crumble and rebuild.
Mm.
So those of us who are here as light workers, yeah, it would be nice if I could win $1 million and move to Australia or Ireland or Scandinavia or something. But in my pre-birth plan, I was designed to be here to help people in the dark. That's why I'm a reverend. That's why I have the skills I have. And I'm here in service. That's why Clean Out Your Life Closet was written. Clarity, adaptability, simplicity, and making friends with stress.
We'll talk about stress in a minute. One thing we touched on before is perfection.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I hear it a lot. People almost jokingly now saying, whether they mean to or not, oh, yeah, I'm so OCD. And I'm like, I don't know, like they think they're proud of it or something. I'd love to hear, like, I know why perfection isn't good.
There is no such thing as perfection. I read from a chapter called When Perfect Destroys Good. And that literally is the story of my parents, my stepmother, my grandmother. And my grandmother hated my mother. And so she ground my mother into the dirt and destroyed my mother, who was a good, kind, loving person before she married my father. She died very young, 60, because she had been an alcoholic, cross-addicted with barbiturates, lung cancer, heart attack. Because she was always trying to be perfect in the eyes of everybody because she was told she wasn't good enough. And then along comes my beloved stepmother, Shirley. Shirley was completely different. Shirley was someone who didn't look for perfection, looked for opportunities. When she was divorced in her 50s, she didn't play wounded wife. She went and got a degree in landscape design, which is what she had always loved. She ended up married to my dad when he was in his mid-60s. She was in her late 50s. And it was a good marriage. She did the best she could with what she had. And she taught my father to do the same. She accepted me with all of my flaws, partially because she saw a lot of my father in me, and I agree. But she also didn't expect perfection. Because my mother felt so awful about herself, I was her surrogate in the world. So she rode me very, very hard because if she was never going to be perfect, I had to be. Shirley didn't care. Shirley thought what I did was fascinating, not crazy. She loved my sense of humor and my abilities. I will share a wonderful story that is all about Shirley for me. My father died in 2001. Shirley was, still living in the family house. When they were married, the house had little decorations. They were little stars on wire that you could wrap around plants and that was their thing. And of course, when Dad died, they all went away. Every 18 months or so, Shirley would find a little star in the middle of the living room that was impossible to get there. They were not there. And she would call me and she would say, I found a star. Do you think it was from your father? And I would say, of course it was, Shirley, because psychically that's called an apport, where the discarnate can somehow move a book, a little piece like that, and put it where it
Wow.
doesn't belong. And
Okay.
she would go, I thought so. So she saw what I do as loving and valuable, not she's crazy.
And also I think in that moment when we're going to come back to stress, guys, but we're just going on this. I want to keep going on this. It's really important because a lot of us do lose loved ones. And I
Yes.
think it's really important that there's people like you that can connect us and know that there is life, having that continued relationship, even though that we can't see them and we can't touch them, which sucks. But know there's a continued relationship with the grief and that you can still communicate them is so important. And you sharing
It
that
is.
gives people hope and belief that there is something, no matter what your religion is, no matter what your spiritual, what you believe in, to know that a loved one, you can still communicate with them. Isn't that such a beautiful thing?
It is. And I'll tell you, Shirley, the gift she gave us, she died in February of 2009, but we had a memorial service for her in June when everything was beautiful. We had it at the house. And everybody told stories about Shirley, and I told that one. And at the end, there was a little man in the back that none of us recognized. And he came up and he said, uh, my name is Lou, and I'm Shirley's neighbor in the back. And I saw everybody here today and I said what was going on. And they said it was a memorial for Shirley because she had died in February. But that doesn't make any sense because about 6 weeks ago, I was looking out my back window and I saw her in the garden. You know, she was in her bathrobe and I walked down and I said, Shirley, are you okay? And she looked at me and she nodded, but she didn't say anything. And then I said, you can, anything we can do for you, we're happy to do that. And she smiled and she nodded and she still didn't say anything. I was like only 6 feet away from her and I saw her. And then I went back upstairs and now you tell me she died in February, but I know what I saw. That was Shirley's last gift to the family. She was telling us, you go on.
I don't think I've ever heard of that happening before. I mean, you hear stories, but I've never actually heard someone like you saying that to me that, wow. So that just makes me believe even more.
Shirley was very generous that way. And the fact that she was in the back of the house where she had tended the roses and planted the moss plugs and lavished love and care really makes perfect sense.
And the fact that he could see her as if she was like here, whoa, that's,
I know. That's a rare thing. That's a talented ghost. What can I tell you?
yeah, well, the guy was on a lot of drugs, but no, he wasn't. I'm joking.
No, it's this just little old neighbor guy.
How cute. Oh my God. Wow, that's so powerful. So yeah, that's really, and it's so nice that you've got that all the darkness you've been through, you've been able to bring this light to people for people to connect with loved ones that have passed.
Yes. But I don't do it in public. Now, you said that everything was on the table, so I'm taking your word for it.
Yep.
When I do mediumship, I do it a little differently. I don't just fish vaguely. I get what I call the dog tags. My father, Jerome Richard Dorkin, who died in 2001 at the age of 80. Notice that doesn't tell me anything, but it gets me to the energy. And for some reason, my guides play charades. They had surgery, they had an accident, they smoked, and they give me these gestures. And as soon as we know we've got your person, I just open up and I'll tell you exactly what they say. It's not possession, it doesn't sound like them, but I'm their megaphone. So there was a biracial same gender couple. The Black partner had died and her white widow wanted to speak with her. Now, I'm this nice person I just look as normal can be. But as soon as I connected with her person, what came out of my mouth in flawless urban ebonics was, well, shit, it ain't my white bitch. And I'm going, oh my God. But the woman in front of me burst out laughing and nodded, because that phrase is what her partner Isabel always shouted as she walked in the door after a business trip. Now, I cannot safely do that on a stage in America. Okay, wrong color. But had I worried about that and fudged it, she never would have had that. There was a woman in Pennsylvania who wanted to talk to her husband. She didn't tell me anything about him, but what I told you. And my head tilts and my arms go out, and in this thick Texas accent, I go, "Hi, baby." Again, that's how he would greet her. And I had no clue he was from Texas. She started to cry. This is why I say I take my work seriously, me not so much. Because these are amazing things that I get to do to bring people peace and solace and sometimes some answers. And I love doing it. On the other hand, yes, I charge for what I do, because in this world, that's how you make a living. Mm-hmm. And if you want me to do this 6 days a week, that's how I have to pay the bills. But I don't charge $87,000 to talk to me for 20 minutes like, the big names.
And I don't know, even sometimes the big names, I do look at them and think, yeah, how genuine are you? Because there's always that mystery, right? You always get fit. Yeah. But that's, yeah. So you're just, I already know that world exists, but I think you're just confirming to people, especially if people have lost a loved one, that there is something out there that they can find their own way to connect to them.
Yep. But they have to remember, when they talk to us, we are not dial-a-dead. If Aunt Rose is on a field trip up there, she will not be by the phone. Does not mean she doesn't love you, but it just means that she's off doing whatever souls do after they pass.
So dial-a-dead, that means if I came to you and I lost someone that was dear to me and they didn't want to talk, it doesn't mean they just don't want to talk right now. They're busy.
And it doesn't mean I'm not good. It just means that I am not the right radio station to make the connection at that point in time. That's all.
Or does it mean that there's no message for you right now? You actually don't need to know anything right now.
Well, you don't need to know anything, but sometimes people come, they don't need to know anything, but they just want to know, are you there? And a lot of the times they just want to talk they want to apologize to the loved one. They want to say all the things that they never got to say. It's almost a one-way conversation. And that's okay too. Whatever you need is what I'm here for.
If someone's listening to this and they've lost someone, well, we all have really. If I know they're on a different radio station, but if we talk to them in our head or out loud, can they hear us? So I'm just want to give comfort for people.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
So people can use that for people.
We don't lose them. The thing that I will remind people, though, is our souls are too big to fit in these little bitty bodies. So part of it comes down. It's like this is our soul, and part of it comes down in each incarnation. So part of our soul is always up there with all of the people that we love. It's like, Mom, I'm so sorry I wasn't there. Most of your mother's soul and yours were upstairs sharing a bowl of popcorn, watching the two of you when you were a teenager. This is what the work that I did in Robert Schwartz's breakthrough series on life between lives and pre-birth planning is. For instance, karma is not carrot and stick. It's 5 things. There is no bad karma. You're not a bad person. It is the things you've chosen to learn in this lifetime. And when people say, well, what about free will? You actually have both. It's like going to university. what you decide, your life challenge. In this life, I'm going to be in a female body and learn what it is like to deal with that. That's like choosing your major in physics. But how you deal with it is your free will. And you can either do gut courses or double major plus lab, depending on how difficult you make your life. So I firmly believe that my mother's soul is good, kind, compassionate, but agreed to play the part of the monster in my childhood to set up the lessons that I needed.
Mm.
So when she crossed over and her entire soul was up there, I'm sure she talked with my soul and, got everything straight. There is no anger. There is no, you should have. When the part of the soul that is here goes upstairs, we'll compare notes again. And am I absolutely sure about this? Oh, if I was, I'd be the next religion. This is what I understand. This is what I believe. Like any scientist, it's the hypothesis that we make based on observations.
Mm.
Nobody really knows what happens.
Mm.
We don't. But I have had enough anecdotal and in some cases empirical evidence so that I believe we don't snuff out like a candle, that we go on.
Mm. It's really powerful. Yeah, I think that's such a gift that we can give people today about that. Thank you, universe. Talking about mediumship, that was something that wasn't planned, but it came up for a reason. So there we go. Moving along to something completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And something that is really important for everyone right now is stress. And I want to talk about that. I want to, ask just to spend a bit of time on stress because it tends to really hold a lot of people back in life. It tends to really ruin people's lives. It suffocates people. And you say that stress should be our friend.
Look, you are going to have stress, Petunia. You just are. But there's good stress and bad stress. Good stress is you're going in for the final interview and you know you're going to nail it and get the job. You're about to go on stage. It's the day before you're going to get married and you love this guy to pieces. That's all good stress. Bad stress is when you say yes when you should have said no, when you multitask, when you put everybody else first, when you double think. Double think that's when, all right, if this happens, then I could go here or here, and then what do I do, et cetera. And, it's like a computer flow chart. And when people come to me with that kind of stress, I say to them, how old are you? They look at me, I'm 34. I said, no, you're 68 because you have been living a double life. You're doing twice as much thinking as you need. And they go, wow, you're right. So that's why there's good stress, which is called eustress, EUSTRESS, and chronic stress. And it's the chronic stress that you need to tamp down. And I give you some suggestions of how to do that. Get up and do something different, put on music and dance, hug your fur person, have a cup of tea, whatever. Now, there are other couple of kinds of stresses that I talk about. One is called stress as the shot across the bow. That's when something kind of hits you in the face and you go, oh, I think I'm going to avoid that. And the example I use is when I was doing mini readings at a big garden party. And I was stationed at my friend's cafe and bakery. And I hadn't eaten that day. So I just went in the kitchen and grabbed a couple of their raspberry bars, which are wonderful. They're heavenly, but they are so heavy with sugar. And I wolfed both of them down. And in about 20 minutes, I couldn't understand why my heart was hammering. And I knew my blood pressure was up. Well, I checked online at my break and dang, sugar will do that to you. So that was the boom. And I'm really very, very careful about how I deal with sugar now. Usually it's fruit, which is fine. Yes, when I do date night with Carl, we share an ice cream sundae. We just do. That's part of the marriage game. but I'm not someone who grazes on a half gallon of ice cream and a dozen donuts. Nope. So that's an example of one big thing hit you upside the head and you get it. Then there is stress as mission creep. What's mission creep? It is a military term where the lowly private is given some instructions by his drill sergeant, and he has X amount of time to do it. But then other people keep telling him, and you have to do this, and you have to do this, but there's no more time. And so he's forced to do all of this. He could have done the first job and been fine. Now he's panicked. And the example I use is a woman who loves to knit. And then someone says, could you knit this for me? She says, yes. And a friend of the friend says, I run a charity. Could you run this for our, tombola, whatever they call it? And then someone who was the local radio station says, those are really great. We'd like that for our pledge drive. And could you make them out of these patterns? And this is the wool from our underwriter. And she says yes to all of this. So that what used to be a lovely, easy, relaxing thing in the evening is now so much pressure that after she got everything done, when she should have said no to most of it, she put away her needles and she never knitted again because it had become toxic. This is why one of the things that I say to a lot of my clients, especially the women, and I even have postcards made up for them, no is a fabulous idea. Because a lot of them don't know how to say no. So I explain to them it's a very important thing to say no. And I don't know what it's like over there, but my generation, we were taught never to say no to other people's wants, always to ours. The example I give is you're a 4-year-old, there's a plate of cookies and you're smart, and there's more cookie in the big one than the little one. And so you reach for the big one and your mother slaps your hand and goes, you're bad and you're selfish. So you're not even going to get a cookie. And she gives it to your little brother who eats it at you, as they always do. And then she compounds it with, besides, girls who eat cookies get fat. Nobody likes a fat girl. Do you really want the cookie? To the point by when you're about 6 or 7, my generation and maybe Gen X, we were subliminally told, if you want anything, you're wrong, you're bad, you'll be punished, and you have to watch somebody else get it. Which is why when women come to me, they're empty nesters or they've just retired. And I don't know what I want to do with my life. Well, and they sit there panicked because they absolutely don't know what to do with themselves. That's why if they had said no from the beginning and yes to themselves, their lives would be so much more fulfilled, so much more color instead of black and white.
Yeah, I've just lived that. Yeah. So I'm just reflecting, thinking, God,
okay.
What can we give someone that does everything for everyone else or just doesn't know who they are? I think picking up this book will be a really great start for people a place to start, I think. Another thing.
I don't ask them to do anything impossible.
Yeah.
I don't.
And you're not leading with, like you said, all the other books. You do this, have the perfect morning routine, have this. I know I could probably recite it and you probably could. The green juices, the yoga, the mindful reading, the grounding on the grass in the morning, and I just switch off and go, ugh, yuck, stuff that. And also, I don't want to be like anyone else. Why on earth would I want to have a morning routine like everyone when I already know, but I've done the work, so I know. And as a little girl, Barbara always knew that I was different. I always knew that I wasn't like anybody else.
People like that in those books, I laughingly say they're the ones who think their aura don't stink. And there's a difference between gurus and mentors. I never want to be a guru.
Yeah.
What's the difference? A mentor will push you a little further than you think you can go, kick you out of the nest a little before you think you can fly, and sit in the audience applauding you when you get an award for being better at what they do than they are. The perfect example is Meryl Streep clutching her Oscar, thanking her drama professors from Yale University. Gurus are the ones that say, I have all the answers. You may sit at my feet and here, buy these 12 books and now come on a cruise when I'm going to channel the same thing at you, but you'll never be there. That's like Esther Hicks and Abraham. Okay. No, I'm sorry. I do not want to be anybody's guru. I don't want control of anybody's life like that.
No. But yeah, you say in such a beautiful way that this book and what you teach people is this is my life, this is what I've done, these are all the things that I've learned, and then kind of put it on a platter, and it's like you pick and choose what resonates with you, you pick and choose and try it out, and then you make it your own life.
Yes, exactly so.
One thing, the last thing too, that I want to touch on before we go is, so people struggle with not knowing themselves, people struggle with stress, and then people struggle with going with the flow. And I know, like, I'm not any different to anyone else. I did struggle with all of these things in the past, and going with the flow. Even now, it's interesting, and I'm going to be really honest here with you. The only little bit of challenge I have left within me is the faith and believing. Because I know everything's amazing now, moving forward, but you still have that faith and belief that everything's going to be okay, you know? So how do we go? How do we go with the flow?
There are no failures. There are only rerouted opportunities. That's the first thing that you need. Going with the flow, the example is what I did dealing with my cancer. I'm reaching over because somebody is yammering and saying, mommy, 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 mommy. Always ask yourself 3 questions. What am I X about? X is whatever you're feeling, angry, sad, anxious, whatever. Why am I X about that? And the question we never ask ourselves, what do I think would happen if I stopped being X about that? It's called stimulus belief response. And it's because whatever we believe is how things will go. The example I use is, it's raining outside. I got to go back, honey. And rain is neutral. And you have 3 groups. You have a man who is at the beach with his kids. He has 1 week off and it's going to rain all week. He's feeling upset. Me, I'm in my office working. Cat's over there. It's raining. I don't care. The farmers in Schoharie County, where I live, it's been a 2-month drought and the rain is going to save their crops. They're thrilled. The rain is the rain is the rain. Now, changing your mind. The guy at the beach says, you know, I wanted to show you all the Marx Brothers movies that I grew up with, and we're going to make movie week and do this and this and this. And he sets it up so that the rain now is a positive thing. I still don't care. My house is dry. And there's one farmer who said, damn it, if it had held off another 2 weeks, I would have gotten a big insurance payment. Now I'm screwed. So everyone else is dancing, but he has decided it's bad.
Yeah.
But the rain doesn't care. It's what we decide about something that makes it so. And you can change that.
Okay. So going with the flow is related to having the belief and faith, but also it's the spin that you put on it as well as to what is going to happen. Am I making sense?
Yes. The other thing is you have to learn to think like a Martian.
Tell me more about that.
Okay. If you were sitting across from me and you had water coming out of your eyes, I might say, oh, why are you crying? Because that's what I think. You got little Zeeble from Planet Zorch, and he's come down at the instruction of his superiors, learn everything you can about the denizens on this planet. He knows nothing, but he's so excited. He hops out of his little spaceship and he walks up to you. You have water coming out of your eyes, and he goes, why is there water coming from your eyes? Because it could be anything. And he would probably get a better answer because maybe your contact lenses are bothering you, or maybe you have allergies, or maybe there's an emotional basis. When we open up with non-judgment and curiosity, my favorite story, huge example. There was a guy who was married. He had a daughter. He was in a bad car accident and they put him back together, but his face kind of looked like spin art. And he was terribly self-conscious and he always kind of walked, hiding. One night he was putting his daughter to bed and she grabs his face and she smushes it next to hers. And she says, "This would be a great picture, but it would be better if mommy's face were in the picture." Now, the old him would have thought, even my daughter thinks I'm hideous. Lifelong trauma. But he knew, what would a Martian do? So he looked at her and said, "Why would it be better if mommy's face were in the picture?" And she looks at him like he's an idiot. And she says, "Because mommy can't hold the camera still and you take good pictures." Because he asked, because he simply was non-judgment and asked the next question, he found out his daughter doesn't see him as ugly. It's just daddy. And there was a perfectly logical reason for what she said that had nothing to do with his looks and saved himself a lifetime of trauma. Questions are not so much signs of doubt as the ability to crystallize what we know. And that's a direct quote from Barry Neil Kaufman at the Option Institute, which is where I learned all this stuff.
We put our shit onto other people, don't we?
Hell yeah.
We don't mean to, but I think that little Martian, like being curious and asking why until you can't go any further is a really good thing for us all to do.
Mm-hmm. And I talk about the Martian in the book. I think I talk about the 3 most important questions as well.
Yeah.
Because they're simple tools. You don't have to spend thousands of dollars and go to, retreats, etc., or do drugs. Ask questions. Questions are miracles.
Ask questions in conjunction with how you feel within yourself.
And in the world.
Yeah.
Ask questions in the world.
Yeah.
Okay? Don't ever think you have to know what the answers are or you're going to look dumb. Be the Martian. The Martian doesn't care. The Martian is curious and they want to know.
Martian sounds like it's a 2-year-old. Why? Why?
Yes. Yes, they do.
But why? I'm sure people with children could understand, like, yeah, they're like, why? But why?
Absolutely. Kids are Martians. I agree with that completely.
Yeah, I do too. I really do. Wow, what a fascinating chat we've had today. And we've even, shout out to all the dear people because we did talk about them. They kind of snuck on in our conversation today, didn't they?
Yep, we did.
They wanted to, yeah. No, that's what I love about my podcast is it can go here, there, and anywhere, and there are no rules.
Excellent.
And that's more freeing. And I think it gives the ability that, again, there's no such thing as perfection. And I think the more real this is, the more that it can land with people. So you have and I looked at everything within your email. You're on Patreon and then you have a Medium website and then you're on YouTube and all this stuff. So I thought, is it best for me just to list all of that in the show notes? Is there a specific thing that you want people to know of where they can find you?
The best place to go is right to my website, corbiemitleid.com. You see the 24 different kinds of readings I do. I've got over 100 articles there. My podcast is there as well. I have a little one myself. The other place to go is YouTube, because that's got interviews I've done, guided meditations. Those are the 2 main sites. You go to those 2, you're going to get just about everything.
Brilliant. Yes. Thank you so much. I want to just thank you, Corbie, for your time today and just for sharing all your wisdom and knowledge and coming from a place that you walk alongside us and not above us. And it's really refreshing that that's part of that New York side of you too. That's what I really am drawn to is just shooting from the hip. And I wish more people, and it's shooting from the hip with love. People don't understand that sometimes when people are quite honest, that they're like, oh gosh, that's a bit blunt or that's a bit mean.
Now, I refer to it as whacking you upside the head with a clue brick.
I've needed many of those in my life. Where were you 20 years ago in my life? I'm pretty sure the universe has used so many bricks on me and they're like, this girl is late. And I got it now, but it took me a really long time. And I thank them every day for showing me the way.
So then plan to build something wonderful with all those bricks.
It's exactly what I'm doing every day. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time today.
It was fun. Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. I hope this conversation has added value to your self-care journey and inspired positive changes in your life. If you enjoyed this episode, consider sharing it with a friend who might benefit from this episode. Don't forget to subscribe on Spotify or on your favourite podcast platform to stay up to date on future episodes. Your support means the world to me. I genuinely love hearing from you, so please take a moment to leave a review. Let me know which part of today's episode resonated with you the most. Your feedback guides the direction of this podcast, and I really appreciate each and every single one of you for being a part of this community. To fall in love with yourself is the first secret to happiness. To find out a bit more about the Studio Chat podcast, head over to my Instagram page, Studio Chat Podcast, or if you want to find out a bit more about my counselling private practice, head over to Instagram on self_care_studio. Or head over to my website, selfcarebybarbarathompson.com.au. I'm really looking forward to seeing you on the next episode. Until next time, take care of yourselves and keep embracing the journey of self-discovery.